All right, man. I think we've got what is it? Just 10 pounds of stuff to put in a 5 pound bag tonight. We got way too much to talk about.
Always. But that's how
Yeah.
it always
So,
is. It's so
yeah, we
funny.
can't get through it. People don't
No.
realize that. People do not realize that, like, we cover so many crazy things. There's so many things that just we forget about that, like, we don't get a chance to, and then we don't carry it over to the next episode. And it's like, we got to make like a, deep cuts episode and just find the best of stuff that we didn't actually ever get to.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right. Well, if you're ready, let's go ahead and get this sucker going.
Yeah, let's go.
T minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, and liftoff.
All right. You get the horn show. It's the big show, everybody.
Ooh.
And we are bringing it tonight. So ready yourselves. Batten down the hatches. Hide the women and children. Because You Get the Horn show is coming into town. We got a lot to cover. Tad and Jeff here. How you doing tonight, brother?
Doing good, man. You?
Doing great. Doing great. You're coming to us live from your brand new studio tonight, and it is looking nice. So
Thank you.
hopefully,
Thank you.
yeah, the takes will be hotter than ever from a brand new studio.
I'm actually getting ready to text my wife here to come down and grab my cat, who is apparently outside of my door right now crying.
Thought
I'm
I
not sure
heard
if you can hear it.
some wailings of lamentations there. I wasn't sure.
It's so weird. She's never around ever, like during the day. All of a sudden, she wants to be part of the show.
All right. Well, while
I'm
you're
a little distracted texting, so
while you're handling that, let's jump into the first story of the night. And man, I saw this the other day. Some people just have weird scenarios and you can't understand them. So here's one. In July of 2022, a 24-year-old woman was admitted to the Van Training and Research Hospital in Van Province, Turkey, with a severe stomachache. After undergoing an X-ray, doctors were blown away by what they discovered. The doctors could clearly see a vast array of non-edible objects in her stomach and rushed her into urgent surgery. During the surgery, the surgeons found a large metal needle along with 158 other metal objects. The extracted items included a pocket knife, tweezers, screws, nails, a fruit knife, and even more needles. It became apparent to the medical professionals that the young woman had a history of psychological issues, which led to her compulsively ingesting foreign objects. This is known as a pica disorder. Thankfully, the woman didn't suffer any life-threatening injuries, and she survived. Here's what I want to understand. How, in God's name, could you possibly pull all of this out of a person's stomach and say that they did not have any life-threatening injuries? How is it possible that you did not have life-threatening injuries by swallowing all of these things?
and she had no clue why she had the stomach ache. Like,
Yeah, seriously. There's some toenail clippers. There's a couple of keys here. I mean,
How
for
do you
people that are
swallow
listening to the
some of those
podcast,
things?
we have a picture of this. So that's what we're talking about here. I have a picture of the doctors have like a mat, a towel laid out with all of these things on it. And it's just a huge amount of things, man. It looks like coins here, nails. There's another set of toenail clippers. There's two. There's one here.
Look
one
how
here.
big those nails are.
Ooh.
How would you get down toenail clippers?
Yeah.
How would you get that down your throat?
Look at this. Look at this piece here. This is like a railroad spike.
Oh my God.
That just doesn't even seem possible. All of that came out of all at one time, not even at different times. How did you have room to eat? How were you ever hungry?
Yeah, I
Like,
guess
your
you
whole
never
stomach had to be
were.
full with all of this.
Seriously. Oh my gosh. It's called what? Pica disease?
Pica disease, yeah. Yeah. PICA. And yeah, apparently it is something where, it's an eating disorder where a person eats things that are not considered food. So young kids will often eat like grass or, toys, whatever, just because they're curious, about what's around them. But for the, for this type of thing, it's more of a psychological issue. And so, people just like, it's so bizarre. And how could you survive that?
But it's metal, so it's very specific things that they're
For
swallowing.
her, at least. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's they say people who show signs of pica often have mineral or other deficiencies in their diet. Iron, calcium, and zinc deficiencies are some of the most common reasons people show these signs. So maybe that's why. Maybe if you have an iron deficiency, your body wants metal, so you're actually eating metal for that reason. I don't know if it's related or not, but it's pretty crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is insane.
Yeah. So you had to have, that has to weigh real weight. You could never go through a metal detector. Like they said 158 different things, right? Like I'm looking at this. They were, 158 metal objects. Pocket knife, tweezers, screws, nails, a fruit knife, and even more needles. Crazy.
That is
Doesn't seem
insane.
possible.
I mean, she had to have weighed 3 or 4 pounds more just based on eating all of that stuff.
Yeah. I mean,
That
this
is
is a
crazy.
quote from the surgeon who performed the surgery. He said, "Honestly, I didn't believe it either at first. We first thought we could remove the objects with endoscopy, but we opted for surgery because the needle itself was too large. We encountered a shocking scene during the surgery. There were 158 foreign objects of various sizes. We've removed them all. Our patient is in good condition."
Jeez.
Incredible.
It's like an episode of My Strange Addiction. You remember that
Yes.
show on TLC?
Yes.
People were eating like drywall and everything else. Jeez.
That's very much, it's very, very similar to that. Yeah, craziness. All right, moving on. Boy, this is one, look, careful what you wish for. Okay, let me say that. We're going to start by saying, careful what you wish for. Some people want to have kids. Some people want to have kids so badly that they will adopt.
Sure.
It's a wonderful thing. Lots of kids out there need a good family. A 45-year-old woman named Christine Barnett adopted a 6-year-old Ukrainian girl in 2010, but in 2019 was charged with abandoning her daughter in Indiana and fleeing to Canada in 2013. The woman claims her daughter was found to be a 22-year-old sociopath with dwarfism who was pretending to be a child and that she tried to kill her on multiple occasions. Christine claims the girl tried pushing her into an electric fence, poured bleach into her coffee, and threatened to stab her in her sleep. She says the adoption was a scam and the girl was actually born in 1989.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So return to sender if you end up with that. And I mean, look, here's the thing. For what it's worth, this does look like, if you're watching on YouTube, I mean, that looks like a little kid. That doesn't look like a 22-year-old. Looks like a creepy baby doll, maybe, but like it doesn't look like a 22-year-old.
Oh boy.
So you thought you adopted a 6-year-old, and it turned out to be a 22-year-old dwarf who wanted to murder you.
So there's a movie out there called Orphan, and that's pretty much the whole premise. And I don't know if now I'm wondering if the movie was based on that story or if this story was based off of the movie Orphan, where she's like, let me try that.
Great question. Yeah.
I mean, this mom had to flee all the way to Canada to get away from this person. My
It's like
God.
a Chucky doll. Like, once you let her loose in the house, she's trying to kill you all the time. You got to pick up and leave town.
Oh my God.
So crazy. It is the weird. I mean, this is just such a weird world we live in. And, chances are, I mean, I don't know anything about this, the woman who was trying to do the adopting, Christine Barnett. But, you're adopting a 6-year-old Ukrainian girl. You really think you're doing something nice and you're excited and this is going to be this wonderful thing. And a freaking 22-year-old dwarf who's a sociopath who wants to murder you is what you end up getting. I mean,
Gosh.
come on, man. We've sent enough money to Ukraine. We deserve only the
Sure.
best of their
Only
children.
the
We don't
best of
need their psycho dwarfs coming over here to kill us when they get adopted. Like, we deserve better.
We deserve better.
We paid for better. We've paid for either your best kids or your nicest dwarfs, but we have not paid to have your dwarfs impersonating kids who are also psychos.
Oh, so psychos. Yeah. No.
Too much.
Nah,
Either
damn.
one of those two. 2 out of 3 I'll take. I can either take a dwarf, preferably this, a dwarf who's a child,
Mm-hmm.
a child who's a dwarf, a child who's a psycho, maybe, because at least I can take it. But I can't have it be a dwarf and a psycho. That's the side of the triangle I can't handle. The psycho dwarf is the one that's a full-grown adult who's going to kill me, and I think it's a child.
Sure. Yeah.
Problematic. So, yeah. So for any folks out there, when you're adopting your Ukrainian orphans, seriously, get a DNA check.
Yeah.
I don't know what you need to do, but just
Bone
get her checked
I don't
out.
know, bone test? I mean, can we do
Yeah.
something?
Yeah, it's bone density is like the rings of an oak tree. You can find out like how old she is. Do what you need to do. It's worth checking. It's worth taking the time. It's worth the
Definitely.
$20 that you're going to do on a 23andMe or whatever. Ancestry.com. They're like, wait a minute. We have high school grades here from 1986 for this girl. This doesn't make sense. Yeah. Weird stuff.
Yeah.
And tying into that, the next story, in 2015, archaeologists found a 430,000-year-old skull in a northern Spanish cave. The skull displayed evidence of deliberate blunt force trauma. If scientists' analysis is correct, this skull marks the earliest known instance of murder in human history. 430,000 years ago. And here's a picture of the skull. And unless that dude just had real bad luck and tripped and landed on a rock right in the middle of his forehead, probably was murdered.
Wow.
Yeah. 430,000 years ago. First of all, it is difficult to even imagine 430,000 years ago that like humans, that people, now again, they didn't have podcasts back then. Like, so it was a worse time, but
Sure.
but still 430,000 years ago that there were still people arguing and getting in fights and, you know, like all that stuff. I mean, 430,000 years. That doesn't like, so, okay. So let's say this, if the average lifespan is, and I'm going to be generous and say 85 years, 430,000 divided by 85 years would be 5,058 lifetimes. That's insane to think about.
Yeah. I would love how
However,
they
back then they'll still
carbon
murder
date
you.
that. Sure.
They will still murder you.
Who knows what that was over? Probably over a girl.
Could have been.
Yeah.
Yeah, chances are. Or
Yep.
the remote or something like that. You know, we've
Sure.
seen people get into the, we're honestly, I'm not ruling out because scientists have not yet figured it out. Was there a Ukrainian dwarf?
Could have been
That
the
could have
murderer.
been the first known case of Ukrainian dwarf psycho murder happened 430,000 years ago.
I mean, you can't rule that out. And I would
Can't
say
rule it
there's a better chance than not that was the case.
Yeah. And I mean, that means that if it happened that long ago, you can't even blame this little girl because it's in her DNA. It's genetic at this point. I mean, if it's been 500,000 years of these Ukrainian dwarfs, I'm going to need to change the subject on this one because I'm going to keep going with it. But yeah, so anyway, yes, 430,000 years ago. That is an incredible amount of time. 500,000 years. So, yeah. And I don't even know, like, okay, that's the oldest instance of murder. I don't even know what the oldest, like, skull ever found or oldest, you know, human remains are. But I mean, it's just crazy that, you know, you think that far back. Hard to believe things were going on. Hard to believe people were getting murdered.
Yeah, for real. Jeez.
Like you like to think like, oh, people were probably getting killed by dinosaurs or something like that, but no,
Something,
no. Yeah,
meteors. I mean,
right. Yeah. All right. This next story I thought was really nice. We're going to cleanse the palate a little bit from the Ukrainian psycho dwarfs and the other just old murders.
Sure.
This one's a nice one. In 1981, Dr. Michael Shannon worked tirelessly through the night to successfully rescue a premature baby boy. 30 years later, in 2011, Dr. Shannon was trapped in his burning SUV following a collision with a semi-truck. Miraculously, he was rescued from the blazing vehicle by Chris Trokey, a paramedic with the Orange County Fire Authority. Remarkably, it was revealed that Chris Trokey was the same premature baby that Dr. Shannon had delivered 3 decades earlier. Now, is that like, and here's a picture. This is like, we talk all the time about, the world is a small place and, all of these things. Like, and this is not a Ukrainian dwarf here that he's holding.
I was just going to ask. All right. Just making sure. Well, we don't know for sure if it is.
Yeah. If anyone listening to the podcast, we have a picture up of the rescuer, the doctor that rescued him, and the rescuer is holding a little baby. We do not believe that baby to be a recently adopted Ukrainian dwarf, but we don't know enough yet to say one way or the other.
We're not going to rule it out.
No, we're still gathering the information. but regardless, I mean, how crazy is that? This doctor delivered this guy as a premature baby. 30 years later, this guy's in a horrible accident, trapped in a burning vehicle, and the premature baby that he delivered 30 years earlier is the guy who rescues him.
That is nuts. I mean, It's just it's just one of those things. It's just like, man, how does this happen? It's just such a crazy. You just never know. I mean, it's that old butterfly effect that we talk about. I mean, it really is. It's just, it goes on in that story too. If you read further into the story, so they ended up bringing him back because he ended up spiking a temperature as a newborn, and the doctor was waiting for them at the hospital. Spent more time with the kid to get him back. Spent 3 days with him, gets him back, and then finally able to send them home. So it wasn't just the one time when they were born. Weeks later, after he goes home, they bring him back and he continues to work on him and save his life. So yeah, very crazy story.
Yeah. I mean, it's weird, right? Like we all have a sphere of influence, right? And some of us have a bigger sphere of influence than others, and we have a bigger range of impact for people. Some of us have that through our social lives, some of it through our jobs, whatever the case may be. When you're a doctor, you end up having, a substantial sphere of influence. You impact a lot of different people in a lot of different ways. And, it's just fascinating though. You deliver a baby one time 30 years ago, and that baby ends up being the one that saves your life. And he was a premature baby, like you said, and had other issues and stuff like that. This baby barely lived. So again, butterfly effect. What if the doctor hadn't been able to save the baby?
Yeah.
30 years later, what ends up happening to him,
Right.
So it's just important, man, when you're out there in the world, be good to people, be nice to people, because you have absolutely no idea how things can come back around and impact you.
That's exactly it.
We talked, was it last week, I think, about or week before, about the guy who jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge.
Yeah, I was
fractured his spine and was kept alive by a sea lion who swam under him and kept him afloat until the rescue boats could get there. Same type of deal, man. It's like, obviously be nice to sea lions as well, because you don't know when they're going to jump in and up too. But
they're
it's
going to rescue you from a burning car. You just never know. You never know.
Yeah, you can never tell what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So better safe than sorry.
That's right. Next time you throw that rock at that goose, just know.
That's right.
That goose could rescue you from a burning vehicle.
I've seen it happen. How many times do we need to see it happen before we learn from it? It doesn't make sense to keep turning a blind eye to this.
Exactly.
And speaking of better safe than sorry, another fantastic story. Cyclist Martin de Jong was scheduled to fly aboard Malaysian Airlines Flight 370, which infamously vanished without a trace. But he also had a ticket for flight MH17, which was shot down over Ukraine, and he changed his travel arrangements at the last minute in both cases. This dude was booked on 2 different flights that went down. He should have died twice. This is like a final, the movie Final Destination type of deal.
Oh,
like
this is
he
100%.
is cheating death, man.
Yeah, it's gonna.
And
find
he just
him.
keeps rescheduling his planes and stays alive.
How crazy is that? I would never fly again. You could never get me on an airplane ever again. I'd be like, no, it is trying to kill me.
Yes.
It is definitely trying to kill me. Or I would book it and then just immediately change my flight.
Every time.
Every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh
and actually
gosh.
change it twice because he changed it. I guess he didn't change it from one to the other. He had 2 different things, but yeah, I mean that is unbelievable that this guy not only 2 situations that are terrible, 2 of the most infamous plane crashes, like the Russians shooting one down over Ukraine and the other one that just disappeared without a trace into what we believe to be in the Indian Ocean, and just like 2 of the most famous plane incidents in history, and he was supposed to be on both of them.
That is some Final Destination stuff. He's gonna slip in his bathtub and and drown.
Yeah. I mean, it is just, you see these things and you just go like, wow, man, how does this even happen? And how grateful must you feel, or maybe guilty in some ways? We talk about survivor's guilt, right? That's a very real thing. But how grateful must you feel where it's like, that scene in the movie Fight Club where like Brad Pitt has the gun to his head and then decides like he doesn't shoot him, and he's like, oh, tomorrow's going to be the best morning of your life type of deal. You're going to wake up a whole new lease on life. It's like, how much do you feel where you're like, oh, I was supposed to be on that plane. Oh, wait, I was supposed to be on that plane too. Like this, I mean, it's just, wow.
I mean, I think at that point you have to feel like you're living on borrowed time at that point, don't you? Like you just, okay, now I've just got to live every single day to the fullest because obviously I'm going to die some tragic way. So let me just live life to the absolute fullest.
That's it.
Jeez.
Yeah. I mean, and that's just like, it's just one of those things, right? It's like, you don't know. I mean, is it lucky? I don't know if it's lucky. I have no idea what is in store for this guy or what he was supposed to do with his opportunity, but it's incredible. There's no doubt about that. Whether it's lucky or not, it's incredible.
Yeah. Because, there's got to be at least one of those flights where someone actually changed their flight to that flight.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And probably lots of them. Yeah. Where it's just like, oh, you know what? I found an earlier flight. Let me get on that one. And then it disappears or gets shot down or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just these tragedies that happen are just unbelievable. And so it's almost like the tragedies are horrible. Occasionally it's good to look at the positives, the people that actually didn't, have the worst result befall them, because man, we see so many horrible things go on and so many tragedies that happen in the world. And sometimes it's just good to look at it and go, wow, okay, this guy's just unbelievably lucky. Good for him, versus, we spend so much time talking about all the people that, that weren't lucky enough to have changed their flights and stuff. So
right.
Yeah. Just crazy, man. Crazy.
A rumor at one point that Mark Wahlberg had supposed to have been on the flight from Boston.
Yes. On September
11th.
That's what I heard. I don't know if it's true or not.
I don't know if I never looked into it to see if it actually was the case, but that was the at least rumor. He was supposed to have been on that flight or something to go to, because I think it was going to Los Angeles or something.
Yeah, I think so.
And
I think you're right. I think it was Boston to LA.
Yeah. And then he decided to either drive or I don't know, take another flight or do something. So, I don't know. I never looked into it to see if it was true, but that was a rumor at one point anyway. So
I've heard that as well. I could have lost one of our great thespians, and glad that we didn't. That would have been a loss. That would have been. I mean, September 11th
never be
was
Ted
bad.
Or Ted 2. Yeah,
That's right. Yeah. And think that's hundreds of millions of dollars of box office, hundreds
Mhm.
of millions that we could have lost out on. So,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, that's just that. It just shows you again the butterfly effect. One Mark Wahlberg and the impact of the economy. If you lose a Mark Wahlberg, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars pulled out of the U.S. economy. Not
Would
to mention, I
Wahlburger
mean,
be as popular? I don't know. I've never been to one, so I don't know.
No, I don't even know where there are ones, and I think most of them have closed down. But the reality is, Wahlburgers is still technically a thing that either does or did exist for a period of time. And as such, he did play a role as he is part owner with his brothers. And yeah, I mean, maybe Wahlburger sales would have spiked and it would have saved the company. I mean, no way of knowing. So maybe Mark's brother, is it Paul? I think it's Paul Wahlberger. Paul Wahlberg.
Sure. I don't think it's Wahlburger, but could be. I don't know.
Yeah, it was a weird decision. I think, if I remember, Donnie Wahlberger and Mark Wahlberger changed their names to Wahlberg for acting. And then Paul wanted to open a restaurant. So he stayed with Wahlburger. He was like, this works.
This makes perfect sense.
I don't see how else it could have played out. So I think that's the way it went. I think the
definitely
Wahlburgers changed to Wahlberg for acting, but the Wahlburger that stayed, Wahlburger opened Wahlburgers to sell hamburgers.
Hamburgers, yeah. Not Wahlburgers, but
not Wahlburgers, which is a weird twist, but yeah, that's the deal there. So, all right, moving on. Lots of people have tuned out already.
Oh, sure.
Moving on, here's one. This is a story I'm going to warn everyone ahead of time that when I read this story, if you're claustrophobic at all, continue to listen because we don't want to lose the viewers. But at the same time, just know this is one of those ones that like it just gets you. On November 24th, 2009, John Edward Jones tragically became trapped and lost his life in the Nutty Putty Cave after being stuck inside for 28 harrowing hours. During an exploration with his brother Josh, Jones mistakenly entered a narrow tunnel, thinking it was a familiar passageway. He became wedged upside down in a space measuring 10 by 18 inches and was approximately 400 feet from the cave's entrance. In this position, his body formed a hook-like shape, making it impossible for him to move without risking serious injury. Despite the efforts of a large rescue team, Jones could not be extricated using a sophisticated rope and pulley system due to a pulley failure mid-rescue attempt. Over time, the strain on his body caused by his inverted and compressed position led to cardiac arrest. Rescuers deemed it too perilous to recover his body, so consequently an agreement was reached between the landowner and Jones's family to permanently seal the cave as a memorial to him. Explosives were employed to collapse the ceiling near Jones's body, and the entrance hole was filled with concrete to prevent further access. Now, again, I already warned everyone up front, but like this is a picture. This is him in this cave. And again, we have the pictures on YouTube, and you can see, so he thought he was climbing up into a cave part that he'd been in. But he climbs up and his body is now stuck on this angle and he can't climb further up and he can't get backwards. And he's pinned in there. First of all, I don't even know who wants to be in this cave here if you could get through it.
I don't get I just for the life of me do not get the sportsmanship or the thrill of going into any single cave. I just
not these tight caves, man. Not these things where there are absolutely no room. What are you going to just see?
Stalactites and stalagmites. Like just go to the Luray Caverns in Virginia. Check those out. Like they got it roped off, and like, you're not gonna see anything better than that. I saw a video that actually wasn't that long ago before you brought the story up. I was like, it wasn't the same person, but they were videotaping it, and they were walking across like crawling, and it was this like water, and they got confused because it looked like, based on the way the water was shining, they thought it opened up, and it just kept getting tighter. And the video just kind of like, and the guy's like, I got to turn around. I can't get any further. And then that's kind of how the video ends. I have no idea if that was his last words or what. But like, I'm watching this video and I'm just like, oh, my skin is crawling, because I'm like, why would you even put yourself in that position? Yes. What thrill are you seeking at that point? Because like, at best, you make it through the cave and you see a lot of darkness and a lot of like rocks.
Yeah.
At worst, you're hung upside down for 28 hours and end up having a heart attack and have to have the whole cave imploded as a memorial to you.
I've seen these things. There are videos even on TikTok of these guys who go out and explore these. I mean, they're so tight that they're putting down like cardboard or something to try to slide on. There is no room. It is the size of them, and they're trying to like twist their shoulders a little bit to be able to move, and they're moving a couple inches an hour, and they're just barely inching. And it's like, they don't know what's in front of them. They don't know what's next. You cannot turn around. Like, there isn't just like a way. And in some cases, your arms are either completely up in front of you as you're moving, or they're pinned behind you, and you're just trying to push off the sides a little bit. There's no, like, I just, no thank. It makes me, it gives me anxiety just watching those videos. I do not like it.
I just have to assume these people have a death wish. Like, they just, like, that's their goal, is just to die inside of a cave. Again, the best thing you're going to get out of that is seeing a whole bunch of rocks.
Yeah. Best case scenario. Worst case, you just die.
Yeah, you're not going to find treasure somewhere in there. And even if you do, you're not going to be able to get it out because you can barely fit through there anyways.
Right.
It just, you're just asking for it every single time you go into one of those things. I don't get the thrill. That is not thrill seeking for me.
No, I have zero interest. And I don't even understand. Like you said, I mean, how do you start that? Like, do you, like what makes you want to just go into these tinier and like more death defying thing? And there's a 0% chance. Like, if you're climbing a mountain and you fall, okay, maybe there's a chance, even if it's a small chance, but you have equipment and things like that. This is like, if I get stuck in a cave, I'm just stuck in a cave. There's no way I can make the cave bigger. There's nothing I can do. And for people that are listening, a lot of times people picture caves as being these big things like the Bat Cave, like you're walking around. We're not talking about walking around. We're talking about army crawling in a place barely bigger than your body. Like, you're scraping the edges. The guys are like, they're bleeding trying to get across this rock in a space with nothing. And then they might run into a spot where all of a sudden it goes uphill really steep or something. You don't have any way to bend yourself up there. Now you can't get turned around. You can't do anything. What are you supposed to do? You got to try to inch backwards if you can. Now you can't see what's happening behind you. And then they're recording a lot of it on their phone and stuff. And no, thanks. I'm good.
I'm out.
And here's a guy who also probably, next story, had a little bit of, he was a thrill seeker, I suppose you'll say. Sir Adrian Carton Dwarf was a British soldier who fought in both world wars. During his time at war, he was shot in the face, head, stomach, ankle, leg, hip, and ear. He survived 2 plane crashes, tunneled out of a POW camp, bit off his own finger when a doctor refused to amputate them. When he was asked about his experience after World War I, he said, "Frankly, I enjoyed the war." Here is a picture. And, okay, I believe him about the eye part. I don't see a lot happening over out of this sleeve. I have no reason to believe this isn't a real story. That was a different time in the military. I mean, the idea, now again, you're in 2 world wars, so you got to figure you're going to take a beating. But if you got shot in the face, head, stomach, ankle, leg, hip, ear, and survived 2 plane crashes, tunneled out of a POW camp, and bit off your own fingers when a doctor refused to amputate them, I don't think you're going to come away from that and say, honestly, it was a pretty good time.
All All things being even.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, look, as far as wars go, it wasn't that bad.
One bad.
Yeah.
One bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was better at being home listening to her.
That would have killed me. Wish somebody shot my other ear.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it is pretty crazy though to think. I mean, the beatings that people can say, and I'll tell you, there's a quote here from him, and he says, "Governments may think and say as they like, but force cannot be eliminated, and it is the only real and unanswerable power. We are told that the pen is mightier than the sword, but I know which of these weapons I would choose." Well, clearly, I think he chose right. And also, he knows because lots of people seem to have chose those weapons against him and shot him basically everywhere humanly possible. Locked him in a POW camp.
I wish someone would have written a strongly worded letter towards me instead of using an actual sword.
Yeah, I didn't need 2 plane crashes, a POW camp, and shot 10 times. I would have gotten the point if you'd have just told me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, pretty crazy, man. Pretty crazy situation with these people. And this was I thought that was a good one. The world is different now. The way that these, the way that the military is different. The people that are in the military is different. You shared a clip with me earlier. I'll see if I can bring it up here in a minute, but it's kind of relevant to that type of thing, right? It's like, it's just a different type of person now. And also life is easier, so that makes a softer type of person. When life is hard, you get hard people, right? That's the way it works. When things are easy, people are softer, and that's just the way it is. So, So if we have time this episode, I might try to play that clip you sent me because it is very relevant to this. I don't have it loaded up in my email here. If you have it, you're welcome to let me know. We can try to bring it up from you, but I'll see if I can get it sent over. Also, just this is not a history thing here, but I saw this the other day. I thought it was pretty interesting. Just thought it at least worth touching on. Oregon just dropped all graduation standards and failing all of its students in the name of equity. Now, when I say failing, I don't mean gave them failing grades. The Oregon Department of Education just decided that basic reading, writing, and math skills are not required for students to graduate with a high school diploma. Previously, you needed to read and comprehend a variety of text, write clearly and accurately, and apply mathematics in a variety of settings. They're citing COVID-19 school closures as the reason now that they have gotten rid of all that. They say that it would be unfair for students to have to be able to read, write, and do math in order to graduate high school. So Oregon has now dropped all graduation requirements. And essentially, if you just go and you can get through class, I guess, if you show up, I guess maybe they base it on attendance or something. Because if you don't need to do math and you don't need science or writing skills, reading skills, any of these types of things, it's incredible. But here's what's funny. Since Oregon abandoned its essential skill requirements for high schoolers, graduation rates have skyrocketed. With a graduation rate of 81.3%, Oregon's class of 2022 set a record for the second highest 4-year graduation rate ever recorded in the state. Unfortunately, this is not indicative of student skills. Only 43% of students in that year's graduating class were proficient in English, and less than 31% were proficient in math.
What are we doing, man?
What
are we doing?
Yeah, your graduating students, where 2/3 of them are not proficient in math, 60% of them are not proficient in reading.
Well,
Makes no sense.
Yeah, I mean, okay. So these guys, what are they going to do for a living?
Yep.
Manual labor, which, again, it is just, that's what they want. They don't want smart. I mean, we've talked about this ad nauseum.
Yes.
to the point where I'm almost tired of bringing it up. But
Yes.
this is what they want. They want dumb people. They want people that aren't smart. They want them to be able to go out and get these jobs working in factories or delivering packages. They don't want smart people. But the problem is going to be not now. It's not even going to be in 20 years. What's going to happen when 40 years from now, when our generation stops working, which we're probably never going to be able to stop working because there's no one smart enough behind us to take over for us. Yeah. So what's going to happen in 40 years when these people now are our age, and having their own kids and everything? How are they going to support a family? How are they going to support, the economy or anything like that? What are we going to do about doctors, and what are we going to do about lawyers? Like this should be cause for concern. And what parent is like, cool, I'm glad my kid is graduating who can't even read on a high school level or a proficient level that they can, that they can even comprehend what they're writing or what they're reading. Who wants to send their kids out into this world that unprepared? What are you like? How fair are you being to these kids? This isn't the kids' fault. I wouldn't put this on the kids at all. If someone told me when we were growing up that, dude, pretty much just show up and you're going to graduate, why would I be concerned about doing any? I wouldn't have at that age.
No way. No. Here's the thing that I can't understand. How is it that it's the highest graduation rate at 81.3%? What's happened to the other 19% of students? They still can't graduate when you don't have to be proficient in math, reading, or writing. Yeah, what are you doing?
Yeah, not showing up. Like, their attendance is a big thing. Like,
the other 20% just dropped out of school because it's just not worth it.
And these teachers, like, what are you doing? What is it? Just you can't reach these kids whatsoever? You have no way of being able to reach them? I mean, I guess it might be difficult when there's no requirements for these kids. Again, I don't know. Like, I was scared to death of half of my teachers growing up,
right?
Because, I mean, they were allowed to pretty much do whatever they wanted. Because you know what? If I got in trouble at school and I got beat at school, guess what's going to happen when I get home? It's not going to be, we're not going to have a meeting. Yeah. It's not going to be a meeting about why did you beat my child at school. You're going to be like, you got beat at school? Oh, okay. Well, now I'm going to show you what a real beating is like. I'm not saying right, wrong, indifferent. Like, I don't beat my kids. I'm not even sure I've ever spanked my children. Yeah. But I can guarantee they're going to graduate and they're going to understand what they're doing because there's consequences to the stuff that they want to do. I got a 16-year-old who's starting to drive. Well, guess what? Your grades aren't up. You're not driving. You don't work. You're not driving. It's one of those things like that. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for them. Like, the world is difficult. The world is hard. Like, this is the easiest time of your life. I wish I could go back and just have high school. Like, it's the easiest time you possibly are ever going to have in your life. But if we're making it that easy, it's not preparing them for what's to come. I mean, it's insane to me. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know what we're doing. I don't know how you can justify. Like, I want to bring someone on the show who was for this and have them explain it, just to see if it's even something I could even say, all right, I kind of get your point, right? I can kind of see it, because right now, how do you justify this?
Well, let me give you, here's what I can tell you. Anyone who we bring on the show, I'm pretty confident we would not necessarily see their perspective, because let me give you this other bit of information. The Oregon Education Association, which is the union, represents more than 40,000 teachers throughout the state. They're also an opponent of standardized testing. They say standardized tests are inaccurate, inequitable, and don't accurately measure student learning and growth. Further, the union labels standardized tests like Oregon's statewide assessments as instruments of racism and a biased system. I don't fully understand the argument for how a standardized test, standardized means uniform, equal, the same for everyone. How exactly is that racist or biased in any way? Now, if you're saying, well, it's racist and biased because you're expecting these underprivileged kids to have reading skills and math skills, and well, apparently not anymore because the state doesn't have any requirements for that. So it's kind of like, well, so is that the idea? The idea is any requirements are racist or biased in some way? Like, we could go on in a bit, we don't want to keep going too far because we're going to run out of time here tonight, but it's so bizarre to me that look, if for my kid, if they need reading skills and math skills, I'm okay with something being biased as long as they learn what they're supposed to learn.
There you go.
As long as they're learning what they're supposed to learn, right? I'll live with that horrible thing of bias or the racism around this or something like that. If it meant that my kid is going to be better prepared to be a successful adult, guess what? Maybe dealing with that bias is part of what you're going to have to deal with the rest of your life as well. Doesn't make it right, but not being able to read isn't right either. Not being able to do math isn't right either. So the idea that we can't have tests because those are biased and racist, we can't have standards of any kind, and we can't have expectations of students or requirements of students. I know things were difficult during COVID. I'm not minimizing that. I have friends that are teachers. I deeply empathize with the battle that teachers went through during COVID. It's truly not even about teachers because teachers aren't even the ones that are saying this. Okay. This is bigger than teachers. This is the state of Oregon's education, the Department of Education for the state of Oregon. This is not individual teachers or even the teachers union saying this stuff. This is the Oregon Department of Education saying we should not have requirements for students to be able to read or write or do math in order to graduate high school. That's just a bizarre failing on every level.
Yeah. And how it's always funny to me when they bring up it's racist. And essentially what you're saying is that you don't believe poor, black, white, whatever kids are smart enough to be able to do these tests and be able to
right.
read and write. And no one looks at that and says, wait, that's racist.
That's right. Yeah.
It's so bizarre to me that anyone would say that, oh, this is racist, that they're required to read on these levels and do this stuff. Because essentially what you're saying is that you don't believe they're smart enough to do that based on the color of their skin.
That's right. It's something we've talked about actually, a sports tie-in. We talked about it a lot when the Washington Redskins in the NFL changed their name to the Commanders. And, you had these American Indian groups coming out saying no, we're not offended by Redskins. That's not an offensive term to us. We still want to be called that. And historically, if you look at most of the groups that were wanting this changed, they're white people. And what they're telling Indian people, American Indians, is saying, this is insulting to you. You just don't realize it. You're not smart enough to realize that you should be insulted by this. But don't worry, we're going to protect you. We're going to save you because you're not smart enough to realize it for yourself. That's just insanity. What could be more insulting than that?
Yeah. So during COVID, we lost our ever-loving minds. And what did we do? What did we erase? We didn't erase anything white related, did we?
Right.
We didn't take Colonel Sanders off of KFC.
Right.
But what did we do? We took Aunt Jemima off of the syrup bottle. It's now Pearl Milling Company.
Pearl Milling Company, that's right.
We took the Indian off of Land O'Lakes butter. It's still the same butter. It's still the same logo. They literally just removed the Indian. So what have we done? We have erased these people. Uncle Ben's.
That's right. That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah. No longer on rice.
Yeah.
All of these black,
it's just called Ben's Original now.
Yeah.
It's not even Uncle Ben's anymore.
No. all of these black historic, like just it's just folklore, whatever you want to call it. Like they're just
representations,
representation of our history here, and you've just completely wiped them off of the face of the earth, like they've never existed. But did racism end all of a sudden?
right?
All right, it's like the most odd thing to me is the NFL in their end zone when they have the end zone that says "end racism."
Yeah,
what in the world does that do? Like,
yeah, it's like why not just say end drowning?
Yeah, I mean it's just
okay.
All right,
end drowning. Is that it? Is it ended now?
Right?
Did we fix it?
Yeah, I mean, it's just the oddest thing. We just take all these people off and we just say these things, and they really have no meaning. Like they're not. Who are they appeasing? Is there any black household out there that is like happy about this? Like, great. My kid doesn't have to go to school now, and maybe there is. I don't know. Maybe there is, but like all my kid has to do is show up and he graduates. Cool. Like, but I imagine. I don't know. Maybe I'm 100% wrong in this, but I imagine 90% of parents out there want better for their kids.
Yeah.
Like you got parents working 2, 3, 4 jobs so their kid can go to a nice school. And now you're telling them, you don't really have to do all that. They're going to graduate anyways.
Yeah.
And so now what are they going to do? Turn around and work 2, 3, 4 jobs because that's all they can do. They can't go to a good computer programming job or something like that because they can't read basic English.
Well, I can tell you what it does is it makes them dependent on the federal government.
That's all it ever is. And I don't understand how people don't see it.
Yeah.
I can't be the only one that sees it. I'm sorry. Like we're not the only ones that can be this smart. If we are,
no. The world's in trouble.
The world's in very big trouble. And also we'll be running for 2024 something. I don't know. Because apparently we're geniuses.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy, man. I know we're almost out of time here, so yeah, we could trust me, we could do a whole episode just on this, but yeah, we'll get ready to wrap it up. And actually, we're going to wrap this up tonight by looking at an African-American historical figure that happens to be a really interesting story. So deal with that. Deal with that. Racism. I'm going to end it right now. I thought Robert Smalls, what an interesting life this gentleman had. Robert Smalls was born into slavery in 1839. He stole a Confederate military ship in 1861 and disguised himself as the captain. He uses the secret code book and hand signals to pass Confederate guard ships. He rescues more slaves and their families, escapes to freedom, works as a military advisor to the Union until the war ends, buys a house, runs for Congress and wins, and lives happily ever after. Robert Smalls. Can you imagine this? This dude's born into slavery. He steals a Confederate military ship.
I mean, if you just ended it there,
that would be exactly
awesome.
Right alone. It would be incredible. Like, how have they not done a movie about this guy?
Right.
He gets the secret code book, learns the hand signals. He's passing Confederate guard ships and is just like flashing them hand signals and stuff. And they're like, all right, he knows the secrets and bring him on through. He's got to be legit. Seems questionable that he's black, but okay. Let's let him right through. Then he takes that boat and rescues more slaves and their families, escapes for freedom, and then, a military advisor to the Union, and then runs for Congress. Robert Smalls.
Awesome.
Yeah. So that's pretty crazy. And so, I will say this, I'm not going to tie too much of this into the Oregon thing, but the idea that there's nature versus nurture, right? We're all affected by our surroundings. But you can also change your surroundings and you can change what you're doing. And, you can wait for someone to give you something. You can wait for opportunity or you can make opportunity. And Robert Smalls made opportunity and risked life and limb to be able to do it. So I'm pretty confident if that guy is willing to put himself out there like that, risk his life to be able to help other people and do these incredible things, a story that you never hear about. This is not a guy that's widely touted, but I can tell you that if he's able to do that, I promise you, if you're in high school in Oregon, you can read and write proficiently. If this guy was able to do that and save people and put himself on the line to be able to do these things, and then what ends up happening? He goes from being a slave to being a member of Congress. Like, I mean, that's a pretty amazing turn of events for him, and he earned it. You know, nobody gave him anything. He didn't sit around and wait, and then somebody took pity on him and felt bad for him, so they decided to help him out. He made it happen for himself, and you know, that seems to sometimes be a lost art in the world we live in. So,
exactly.
Anyway, that's thought that would be a decent way to close the show. So, any last things from you there before we wrap this sucker up?
No, I'm good, man. Good show.
All right. Well, we did our service. We've done our duty. We thank you to our global audience. Check us out on all of the social media platforms that you get the Horn Show, and certainly on the podcasts, YouTube, and everywhere else. So thank you for listening, everybody. We will talk soon. Good night.
Good night.